We briefly present today how remote sensing could innovate cultural heritage conservation and restoration. At the moment, I'm in the geomatic laboratory. Thank you, Professoressa Dominici, for the hosting, but I am devoted to material science and technology, so this is the main issue. What we speak today is about archaeological heritage. Cultural heritage is a large common definition about a lot of objects. We agree that there is a huge amount of buildings and other aspects and structure, but when we speak about something related to archaeological heritage, we must also consider all the architectural aspects, such as surfaces and such as the structure. So this will be two different aspects. The main question driving this presentation is how and if remote sensing could contribute to manage and perform strategies for archaeological heritage. And we had to consider these questions always in mind when we speak today about the necessities and the needs of archaeological heritage. Just some example, we should consider, for instance, the raw earth archaeological sites. Here we have some examples of Ebla, some Uzbekistan sites, or some Malatya Turkey sites. And we should consider also this diffusion of this kind of materials and structure. Of course, not all are archaeological sites, but raw earth is spread all around the equator and the subtropical phase. In archaeological heritage, it's more complex than cultural heritage, yes. This is another important question to understand, because we agree that there are a lot of structure that have some specific issues, some they are buried, relics, but very important is the correlation with environment and territory. So, for instance, all the geomorphological aspects are very interesting. And we must consider that all the issue that we know well about the problematics related to large areas, but surfaces, vertical and horizontal surfaces, and other aspects to understanding how we can work in these terms. When we speak about conservation, restoration, we should understand that there are different aspects. The main should be considered conservation and restoration with different meaning, with different values, with different practices. And this moment is not the place to explain this, but in this section we should understand that also maintenance is very important, and preservation. After that, there is another important themes to be understand, what concern risk and mitigation, and of course the fruition of the area, if the area is treated, and all aspects concerning safeguard and valorization. These themes are not distinct to each other, but they are strictly correlate. And at least we have the monitoring that I consider very important for many, many aspects concerning all the present use. Just some example, Pompeii. Pompeii have a huge surface of relics and surfaces, and Alba Fucens, that's a template on which we are working, consider that the area is very large, we speak about over 10 square kilometers. And the sites that here is designed as, is sketched as the walls, but also this area around are very interesting to analyze, to understanding the resource, the quarries, aspects relative to the characteristics of the materials, the geology, and so on. Just to understanding that this area is very difficult to survive it, expected, and monitor it as decay. The relics, the area is here. You have just seen, as Professoressa Domini show us, the arena in this area and so on. This is Sinuessa. Sinuessa is a Roman site along the Tyrrhenian Sea, on the seaside, on the coast. This is an archaeological map. Here you can see the place along the old Via Appia. This is the Strada Domiziana, but at what we are interested in for conservation and restoration, to a large area that is very anthropized and near the seashore. Who concerns these aspects? All works in this area. So the owners, restorers, professionists, experts, scientists, and the community. When we speak about surfaces, we should understand that there's a strict correlation with the environment and the decay. Here are presented some different environments. Very interesting is the submarine environment. And so the question is if remote sensing could help us to understanding characteristics of the site. And issue related to remote sensing should involve mainly research and development, and in particular, prevent and control decay and weathering, and all concerns biocolonization and recolonization. These are a strong issue in which research, development, practice works in this area. Of course, alga for the surface and plant for destruction is very important and relative. So the question if how and may remote sensing contributes is still actual and important. Surface and decay, the aspect related to the structural issue to plants. Other aspects relate to the structure of masonry. And here is, even if it's in Italian, a report of the UNESCO that say that vegetation is the most important trade for the archaeological area. So remote sensing is useful for monitoring vegetation, its growth, chlorophyll, and so on. We will see it about. This is some aspect related to structural aspect for walls, megalithic walls. Alba Fucens is this example. And another very interesting possibility of this area of remote sensing is assessing the decay. In the past, has been used outdoor station in which sample was exposed to open air, and we have several examples in this area. But we believe that it's possible to use targets larger and targets that are the monument itself. So it's very interesting assessing the decay, considering the natural crops. Blackening is very important to understand if it is due to pollution for black rust or to colonization. The index of blackening has been recorded and studied for many times. Here are the vertical surfaces of the arena of Alba Fucens relating to a main important decay form, that is freeze-thawing. So the monitoring of freeze-thawing of the surface is very interesting to understanding how it's influenced the conservation, and salt crystallization, that is the last main decay form of the cultural heritage, archaeological cultural heritage. Concerning structure, we consider that stability and safety are very important. that we should monitor and understand the formation, movements, and biocolonization, and all this breaks to collapse and breakdown. How is the practice of structure consists in inspection and survey, in the realization of 3D models, and the structural evaluation and design is performed by survey, reconstruction model, finite element models, knowledge of materials. All the underlines terms can be treated by, can be analyzed by remote sensing, decay, and the geological situation. The study of masonry and its quality is very important in terms of classification and typology of the structures. So it's very interesting identify objects and categories, and understanding how these methods for this identification and classification could be combined with artificial intelligence. We will have in the laboratory a very interesting example on which way we are working on. So classification of walls, structural aspect and tilting and bending, for instance, of this wall. The masonry quality, this concerns several parameters. Here you have a reference, even if it's in Italian, but it's very interesting, this handbook that gives how it's possible to understand the quality of the masonry. And here we have the sample of different, this is a Roman masonry of the quality index. This is Pompeii, the decay of the structure. The castle of Varisciano, see how it is located in a mountain place. You see the decay and the masonry structural aspects, how these aspects influence the corner of the surface, how it's interesting having mosaic, post-mosaics, displacement, and so on, and what happened next phase, that is the collapse. Remote sensing is very interesting also to understanding the collapse mechanism for safety reasons, but also for surviving some structure after this event. So here we have a sample of Pompeii, and what we need a lot of things as conservators, as restorators, data, survey, but we need more knowledge of territory. And so the inspection, the material, the climate anthropogenic, and so on. Of course, other terms are well known, some monitoring, fruition, but very interesting is the time evolution. So multi-scale and multi-temporality are very important. And we believe that the climate change in terms of rainwashing is a new theme that could be analyzed very well by remote sensing. We have many articles. This is just an example of the flood risk, for instance, for cultural heritage. In conclusion, does remote sensing answer to archaeological needs and items? Yes. We need more applied remote sensing in conservation and restoration of archaeological sites. Could be a more interaction with the expert of other groups with the expert of remote sensing. So it's not remote sensing that should approach to this theme, but other aspects that didn't know what remote sensing gave as potential utilities, and how we can perform innovative approach based on the remote sensing. Here we have some particular issues, for instance, conservation of time, architectonic structural aspects, the effectiveness, the well management. So what's the main conclusion? Remote sensing with tailor-made definition of archaeological needs. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Chairman.